Hi guys, here I am sitting in my living room, 6 months since the lockdown, and I really haven't done anything. So I finally decided that it's time to do something. So I wanted to do this video that people have asked me for a long time, which is basically how to sound like Mike Bloomfield. For this video, I'm talking about Mike Bloomfield in 1968 during the recording of the live adventures of Al Cooper and Mike Bloomfield. To me, that's the pinnacle of Mike Bloomfield, and it's the way he sounds his best. He's incorporated so many different influences that were evident before and had come to a full development by that concert. I think one of the really important parts to that particular sound is that somewhere between the Super Session album and the Live Adventures album, Bloomfield must have done a ton of studying of B.B. King. The thing that I started the video off with is an example of B.B. King solo intermixed with how Mike Bloomfield may have played it. And you can see how much he was influenced by B.B. King. It's different, it's Bloomfield. Everything that Bloomfield does is going to be Bloomfield, but the B.B. King influence is unquestionable at this point. Some of the things that he developed at this point in his career that weren't as prevalent before were, to start with, his vibrato. In his very earliest albums, his vibrato is what I call the psychedelic vibrato. It is an up and down vibrato that bends the string slightly below pitch and back to pitch, like this. Very popular in San Francisco guitarists in the mid-60s. By 68, he had started to adopt the B.B. King vibrato, which is a back and forth vibrato that bends the note up and back to tune, something like this. To show you the difference, this would be the B.B. King style vibrato, and what is the most common vibrato in blues players today. And this is the other vibrato. In this context, it doesn't sound that different, but it was a huge difference. Now, in the Electric Flag album, he uses both vibratos, and in later albums he uses both vibratos and together. And I don't know how he does it. It's something that I certainly can't master. The best I can do is do it with a vibrato. If I go, it's somehow something like what he sounds like. Anyhow, that was the first thing that he picked up from B.B. King. The other was his integration of the minor pentatonic scale with the major pentatonic scale. B.B. King is really the master at mixing those two scales. Although in both cases, Bloomfield and B.B. King, there's more emphasis on the major scale than the minor scale. Just to give you a point, here's a typical Mike Bloomfield kind of thing where there's a lot of emphasis on the major scale. The only note in that's not in the major scale is this one, and he uses it as a passing note to this one. This is the flat third, this is the natural third. So he goes. So the major scale becomes a very big part of the integration of his sound. He's still using the pentatonic scale. I really got to work on that one. Pentatonic is still a big part of it, but it's not unusual to see him go through a minor pentatonic lick and then finish it off with a major pentatonic lick. Something like this. So there he's gone with the minor pentatonic and then to the major pentatonic. By the way, this sequence of notes is kind of a device that Bloomfield uses a lot to end or transition a lick. It's a very simple lick with mostly major tones. He's playing the root, the sixth, the fifth, and then the flat third, but he bends it just enough to put it in the major category. Some of the other things that he picked up from B.B. King were his phrasing, and Mike Bloomfield's phrasing on this album is as good as any guitarist ever. I think it's attributed to Miles Davis saying, it's not about the notes, it's about the space in between the notes. I've also heard that attributed to a million other guys, but it's so true. The space between the notes is what makes the difference between music and notes. And Bloomfield, by this point in his career, was just absolutely masterful at creating space. Even if he was playing a lick that was 4 bars long or even 8 bars long, he'd still find a place to put some space in between and create that phrasing. He also played pretty strictly to a triplet feel, so that a lot of his licks were 3 notes at a time. Um, and that this helps with his phrasing. One of the things I do to learn from Mike Bloomfield is I'll play the record. Actually, I play the song from YouTube. Even though I do have a copy of Live Adventures of Live Adventures of Al Cooper and Mike Bloomfield, although I don't have anything to play it on. I have several digital copies of it, and when I'm doing nothing, I'll put it on on YouTube and listen to it, and I play along with it. And my favorite song to play along with is "Don't Throw Your Love on Me So Strong." His guitar playing on that is just unbelievable to me. And I play along with it, not note for note, because I can't play anything note for note. I'm just not that good at it. I can spend hours trying to break down a solo and come up with nothing. I grew up listening to Mike Bloomfield. Like I said, I still have a vinyl copy of that album, but I actually had to buy 2 new ones because I wore it out. In 1968, when that album came out, I probably listened to it 100 times in the first week. And that sound is just in my head. And years later, people said to me, you sound like Mike Bloomfield. And I said, oh, well, yeah, I guess I do. I listen to a lot of Mike Bloomfield. It never really occurred to me that I was doing anything deliberate. After they said that, I started to make it a little more deliberate and started imitating myself playing Mike Bloomfield. And I got better at imitating Mike Bloomfield. Probably not as good at playing guitar, but I'm pretty good at imitating Mike Bloomfield. So when I play along with "Don't Throw Your Love on Me So Strong," I might play the licks I know, and at this point I know pretty much where they're going to come. I know the song pretty much by heart, but I might play them. I might go, but I might also wait for him to play it and copy him. I also may play something different. I may play along with him different notes just to get the feeling of his pacing and his phrasing. I can't speak highly enough of the practice of playing along and not getting too hung up on what you're playing, getting more hung up on what you're hearing and what you're feeling. Back to sounding like Mike Bloomfield. The first thing and the most important thing, of course, is tone. And by the way, I was going to call this "How to Play Like Mike Bloomfield," but that's crazy because nobody can play like Mike Bloomfield. So in this case, we're going to sound like Mike Bloomfield, or at least try to. I'm recording this on my iPhone. It's about 6 feet away from me. The amp is not too loud, so you're probably going to hear a little bit of pick noise, which changes the sound that the video will hear. So this might not be perfect Bloomfield sound, but I can tell you that sitting here, it sounds, I think I sound a lot like Mike Bloomfield. Okay, so first thing, gear. We all know that on that album, Mike was playing a 59 Les Paul standard burst, a beautiful instrument, and I think, although I'd never seen an actual breakdown, I think he was playing through a Fender Super Reverb with probably a bunch of speaker cabinets to fill the sound, because the Fillmore was a pretty big auditorium. He probably had everything cranked. I've heard that's the way he said everything. He had his volume treble, middle, tone, bass, cranked. He had his guitar was, I think, cranked all the way. And he played, and he had, in that particular album, and this is another thing I think he got from B.B. King, especially in that period in 1968, he used a ton of reverb. His sound is just soaked in reverb, much the same as B.B. King's albums in that late 60s period. He was pretty soaked in reverb. Also in that period, there's a couple of things that are interesting, B.B. King and Mike Bloomfield. B.B. King switched to light gauge strings somewhere around 1967. There's a distinct difference in his playing after that. 68, 69, that period, he had a much different sound. He also, at least for a while, he favored using the middle position, the neck and the bridge pickup. And he got a very distinctive sound with the combination of the reverb. It was very unmistakable B.B. King 60s sound. At the same time, Mike Bloomfield discovered the middle position. I'm not familiar with him using that middle position at any time before the Live Adventures album. For the most part, in the Bloomfield days, he used the bridge pickup for solos. He used the neck pickup for slide solos. And there's a couple of songs where he uses the neck pickup for solos also. In the East-West album, he's mostly using the bridge pickup. In the Live Adventures album, he's using mostly the middle position. He uses the bridge position for a couple of situations where he needs to get a little bit more volume or a little bit more presence, but mostly he's in that middle position. And he's got his amp cranked, but you know, a cranked super reverb isn't the same as a cranked Marshall or an amp with a overdrive in front of it. It distorts, but it's not huge distortion. He didn't play with huge distortion. In the Electric Flag album, he did use some pretty heavy distortion, and I'm not sure what he did to acquire that sound, but mostly he played with what I would call moderate natural drive through a tube amplifier. As far as my gear goes, and my gear recommendations, any guitar that has a middle position will work. This is not a 59 Les Paul Burst. This is a 2020 Harley Benton SG copy that I paid $188. They said it was a B stock because it had a crack at the neck joint. I haven't been able to find that crack. It's a pretty nice guitar, but it's not a Les Paul, and the pickups don't have the same depth that a Gibson pickup would have, and I may swap them out because I really like this guitar. It has a nice feel, nice weight distribution. I also put on this Duesenberg tremolo that I've been putting on a bunch of different guitars. It snaps right on any guitar with a stock tailpiece. So if you have a Telecaster, put it in the middle. You're probably going to turn the treble down on your amp. You're probably going to have to drive it a little bit harder to get that Les Paul sound. If you have a Stratocaster with a neck-on switch, it's a common mod, you can do a pretty good job. Again, you play a little with the switches. And really any guitar with a middle position will do. For an amp, I'm using a Vox, what's the model number? A Vox VX50 GTV amp. This is a $220 modeling amp that they sell. And it's, I've figured out how to use it pretty effectively, but really it's kind of a piece of shit. I think I'm the only person who ever put a positive review on Sweetwater or any website of this amp because it's pretty trashed. It's supposed to be a modeling amp. It's got 3 Fender models in it, and none of them sound anything like a Fender. For this sample, I have the Marshall Bluesmaster combo setting with the treble turned almost off completely, the bass boosted a little, the drive at about little past halfway, if that means anything to you, and I have their what they call hall reverb about 3/4 of the way on. So again, cheap equipment, good equipment, bad equipment, it's really how you play and the way you play it. But you need that middle position sound. Now, let's talk about some specifics about Bloomfield's playing. Oh, I want to get into strings. I've read that Bloomfield used very light strings, that he got Fender rock and roll light strings, which in the mid-60s were the only light gauge strings there were, and they were not that light. They were 10, 13, 17, 24, 30, and 38. So they were lighter at the bass end than at the high end. What I heard was that he used those strings, threw away the low E string, moved the other strings over one, and used a banjo string, a steel banjo string, for the E string. And that's probably an 8 1/1000s string. So he was playing something like 8, 10, 13, 17, 24, 30. Very, very light gauge. Doesn't sound it when you hear it, but I'm pretty sure that's what he was using it. The other thing that he did that's really worth noting is he didn't ride his volume knob very much. If you listen to the album, it sounds like he's doing it all the time. He'll come out and go, and you think he's got it down, and then but I'm pretty sure that he does those dynamics with his picking and his picking and his finger pressure. Now I've got this up to full. This is a typical Mike Bloomfield, how he played with light picking. And then he might throw in a loud note in there. He may have played a little bit with it, but I really think that most of it was through his touch, and it's a good lesson to learn, because I found that learning that light touch really helps you create an interesting solo. You can mix loud and quiet together without fooling around with controls or anything. And the dynamics of it work very well. So if you combine that, the dynamics and the phrasing, and the middle position, you're pretty much there for the Mike Bloomfield sound. Another thing to note is if you see videos of Mike Bloomfield playing, he plays like this. He's got the guitar right up to his face, and he's playing like this. So the effect is that he's probably picking over the neck pickup, or maybe even a little higher, where you have much less string tension, and you're going to have much less bite. So he may have his guitar set at full treble, but by playing up here, he's not going to get as much treble. So again, I play kind of in the middle. So I usually will back the treble off to get his sound, but keep in mind that it's more of a natural effect that happens. As far as sustain, he got great sustain, and that really helps to get the Bloomfield sound. Some guitars sustain more than others. If you have a guitar that doesn't sustain, you're probably going to have to look for another one. This one happens to sustain pretty well. I'll give you an example. So even without a lot of overdrive, he's getting a good sustain. Some of his some of the techniques that he used, or the scales, not the scales, I don't think he used scales all that much. But some of the things that he did frequently. One thing is he would do 3-note chromatics. And he'd do them all over the neck, and he'd do them over and over again. The most famous one, particularly "Don't Throw Your Love on Me So Strong," it becomes the theme of his solo. And he has a million variations on it, but that is repeated, I think, as a theme. If it's not a theme, it worked really well as a theme. Other 3-note licks were. So that was one of the things he liked to do. He also liked to do repetitive licks, where he would play a 3 or 4 note lick and just repeat it. So another way is to pick up some of those licks and repeat it within his phrasing. Again, if you listen along with the album, you'll get the sense of phrasing that you need. He liked to accent the root note with a strong vibrato. sometimes you just hear him go. Another thing that's interesting about his playing is he didn't use a lot of wide intervals, meaning, you know, going from the 1 to the 5. That wouldn't be a Bloomfield sound. He played up and down a scale usually. Whether it was a minor, major, or a combined minor and major, he played through the scale. And, another thing he didn't do was double stops. A lot of guitarists. Of that. He had a couple of double stops that he really liked, that he used a lot. This one is kind of a country-ish thing that he uses as a blues thing. He might go. And sometimes he would play this, which is, again, it's a country thing. And occasionally he'd put in this major double stop. But mostly he was playing single notes. Another one of his really classic licks is when he goes from the flat third to the fourth, back and forth, bending the flat third so that it goes back and forth between a flat third and a minor and a major third, like this. Sometimes I think this was like his escape route. When he couldn't figure out what to play, he'd... Which brings up a technique that he used a lot. Again, this is a B.B. King technique, which is bending the string with your first finger. It's pretty easy on the minor third. But he also likes to do it a lot on the fifth. When he does that fifth, the bend of the fifth, he likes to bend it up and then let it fall back down while it's sustaining. And he has two places he goes with that. He either goes... Here he goes. The bent fifth, bending it up to a sixth, is really a trademark Mike Bloomfield. Oops, wrong key. effectively, he'll be playing on the first chord, and when it goes to the 4 chord, he'll go. There's another lick that he uses that is goes all the way back to his first album, is where he takes the flat 5 here and plays it against the 5. And he does a lot of different things with this. He goes, or he goes. Another thing that he does is kind of the fade out bend vibrato. He bends it up a whole note and then slowly lets it descend while he's applying a really heavy vibrato. I'll do it here where you might hear it better. Another thing that he does, which is pretty unusual, is bending the 6th note. Almost nobody bends the 6th note, but he does it and it sounds right. He goes. So that's pretty much the way to sound like Mike Bloomfield. Remember, practice his timing, his phrasing, his tone, his dynamics. It's not just the notes he plays. If you want to learn the licks, I've got videos of probably 8 or 9 different Mike Bloomfield licks that are useful. But again, it's more important to sound like him than to play like him, because you can't. And by the way, at times he plays very, very fast. I can't play that fast, and I don't. But there are some incredible cases of him playing very fast. In fact, if you want to do a little research, go on YouTube and look for "It's My Own Fault" by Johnny Winter and Mike Bloomfield. It's from the Lost Tapes live at the Fillmore East album. Johnny Winter, Mike Bloomfield playing "It's My Own Fault," Johnny singing. It might be the best guitar that either one of those guys ever played. You would think that with Johnny Winter's flourishes in the speed of his playing, that he might be intimidating Bloomfield. But Bloomfield holds up to him absolutely. And the two of them just played beautifully. The only problem is there's an absolute terrible drummer on that album. So I don't recommend buying the album, but go on YouTube, listen to that song. You're really gonna love it. So that's about it. I hope to get out of my living room in the next month or so, maybe 2 months, 3 months, who knows. I hope everybody's safe out there. Wear your mask if you can. And I'll see you soon.